I don't know, just letting them know that I noticed. And sometimes even something that small is a big deal. Like, I mean, because how many interactions do we have in life where that were harder and people act like they didn't happen or you shouldn't be upset or which I'm guilty of. I get why we do it, but man, when somebody just acknowledges, hey, I imagine that wasn't that easy to experience. It's like, thanks. That goes a long way.
Yeah, I think that we're just gonna go. Jonathan Sharp, welcome to the Dads Project podcast.
Thank you, Nick. Good to be here.
Yeah, man, I am really excited to dive in. You are kind of focused and working on something in the dad space that I think is unique and so valuable, missing in society. So I'm excited to dive into that. Jonathan, you've got three boys, 10, 12, and 14. It is July 18th. This is a selfish question to kick it off. What is
Okay.
your summer break system of success? How do you handle summer break with three boys?
Well, I don't know that break is the right word, is what I would say. They're at a lot of different sport activities, and getting them to those, seeing them get some good coaching experiences has been what we've really focused on this summer, and it's been a lot of fun. So yeah, success. I'm like they get a little bit later bedtime than normal, and so they like that with it being daylight more. So man, just finding some time to get outdoors a little bit with them and take a couple trips with family has been huge for us. So that's been what's been good this summer.
Nice, man. I know it's always a challenge for parents, but what I'm hearing is keep them active, keep them engaged, kick their butts outdoors to set
Oh,
yourself up.
yes.
Uh, this is a unique episode. The last couple, I think three episodes in the last five have been dads with three girls. And now
Huh.
you've got three boys. So what are your boys currently teaching you?
You know, that's a great question. Probably some of the biggest things that I think my boys are teaching me have to do with emulating who I want them to actually look up to. And you start to see it a little bit more as they get older and you see them copying things that you may not want them to copy. So it's like, oh, I do that. Oh, that's me. And trying to figure out ways to, okay, if I like, it's just more pressure towards who do I want them to be and the character that I want them to have. And gosh, do I exemplify that, right? Like, am I being the type of man I want them to be? So I think that helps me. There's a couple different areas that stands out to me with, just the way I am, some of my tendencies and what's showing up with them. Yeah.
In a moment of vulnerability, I like going deep. Do you have an example of something you were like, that is so beautiful to see them? That looks like me. Or the opposite, when you're like, I wish they weren't repeating that.
Yeah. So my middle son has some similar tendencies to me, and I'll go with the negative side because,
So
you
that's
know,
always more fun.
let's go there, right? And I've noticed like whenever he makes a mistake, and it can be intentional and it can be not, usually, he gets really focused on how he feels about somebody confronting him versus how the other person feels based on what he did. And I've seen him respond like that. I'm like, oh, I do that. I get defensive too easily. And it's like, man, yeah, I got to slow down and I got to be like, wait, it's okay to make mistakes. I'm going to make mistakes. Let's focus on repairing the ones that I do. So that's one that I see often in him, and I'm always like, oh, that's me every time.
Yeah. So you mentioned repair, and that's one of the three dad principles that you shared with me. And something we just released a podcast today with Russ Kimura. He talked about circling back after maybe you have a
Huh.
challenging experience with your kids. What does repair look like for you, and how are you setting that example?
Yeah, so with my boys, for a while, it's taken me some years to get where I even notice like the hard interactions they have with me. And just because I don't know, it's just a habit of mine for a while. So I had to like start to be able to tune into, and I had some help with this from my wife. Hey, you like that was you were way too harsh with him, and I was like, I was, so it didn't come like I didn't recognize it that naturally, and so I had to just come back to my kids and ask them questions about it, or hey, what was that like for you?
Yeah.
Did I sound as harsh as I'm hearing that I did? And then, so as I started doing that, it's become more of something that I notice. And if I'm heated or something, it's like, well, I cool down after a few minutes and I go back to him. And I'm like, listen, that was too harsh. And what I might have said could have been spot on, but just acknowledging to them, like, it probably sucks having your dad yell at you like that or raise his voice at you or be harsh with you like that. And dude, you don't deserve that. I'm sorry. And so, and the times that have been a little more, there's obviously levels of that for us dads.
Right.
Like there's stuff that's higher stakes or more stress at certain times. And as I start to pay attention to the kind of, I don't know, we all kind of have these like larger wounds in our life that we end up having salt rubbed on. And so as I notice the ones that my sons have, and when I do something to play into those, then I'm just definitely, again, circling back. Like the other day, we were having a really fun evening and one of mine wasn't for no reason. And so I got onto him pretty hard, but I knew it like played on some feelings of his of I'm different than everybody in the family. And that could be hard on him. So I not only circled back with him, but I actually reminded his mother the next day. I'm like, hey, will you check on him and how he's doing from that? And just let him know that I'm thinking about him and want to make sure I didn't really damage anything. So, multiple steps has been important for me just to not just circle back to and bring up and just ask, hey, how are you doing after that? And just be genuinely curious about it, where it's not so much about, well, I didn't mean to, and, and and you anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
So trying to focus more on how they experienced me in those moments.
Yeah, I really appreciate the emotional intelligence on your vulnerability and willingness to share. Like, hey, this has not always been easy. The wife really had to, help me grow in this area, but sharing the behavior.
Many areas.
So, yeah, so many areas. Because that's something, I work with dads a lot on is that positive behavior change. So, what I'm hearing, correct me if I'm wrong, is obviously we're not perfect. It's going to happen. There may be circumstances where we still fall into that, like, that was in the moment, the emotions ran,
Mm,
and I didn't handle that the best. But you're able to then step back, understand, okay, this is actually what happened. Let me be vulnerable and step back into that situation to repair, to check in, to make sure we're still heading in the right direction.
for sure. Yes. And so much of that for me has been able to, like, I've got to be able to pay attention to, I don't know, just letting them know that I noticed. And sometimes even something that small is a big deal. Like, I mean, because how many interactions do we have in life where that were harder and people act like they didn't happen or you shouldn't be upset or which I'm guilty of. I get why we do it, but man, when somebody just acknowledges, hey, I imagine that wasn't that easy to experience. It's like, thanks. That goes a long way.
Yeah, I think that's something I love that you brought that point up. That's something that resonates and will resonate with so many is like, we just want to be seen. Like, I want you to acknowledge what just happened because I don't think that's normal, whether it's in your career or at home. The easy choice that we all make and have made and probably will continue to make is just to be like, let's pretend that didn't happen. Let's just that's hard. It's hard to step back in there. I'm going to pretend that didn't happen. So I love that you're understanding the power of acknowledging the situation to address it and move forward. The second dad principle you shared was exposing your boys to harder things. What does that mean? What does that look like in the Sharp household?
Ah, boy. Yeah. Well, I mean, I've wanted to teach my kids that getting out of your comfort zone is where growth happens. And if you feel uncomfortable, that's not a bad thing. Of course, I've had to help them see that there's like the comfort zone beyond is the growth zone, and then past that is the panic zone. So, hey, let's temper that. And I did illustrate that as I went with my kids to the skate park one day and never skateboarded before. They're doing all sorts of stuff. And I'm started on an hour just on the skateboard on the flat ground, went to like a foot high ramp and then a 3 foot. And then I got to the 6 foot and I was like, I probably shouldn't do this. But then I'm like, oh, I'm telling my kids to get out of their comfort zone. Bad idea. Tore my shoulder out. It was awful. And I'm like, yeah, that was the panic zone. So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways that they're having to be uncomfortable. And it's just like letting them know, oh, you're in the growth zone, or hey, I see you stepping out of your comfort zone. This is where the magic happens, man. This is why you're seeing growth. It's like, see, I told you, you've already gotten better at this. But just helping them see like what the process is to grow in anything, whether it's their school, whether it's their sports, whether it's relationships, just having a chance to know like, hey, when you're struggling with anything in life, like it's hard work to grow in that area. And it really helps to have somebody that knows what they're doing and knows your problem, knows how to help you with that problem and can give you really good feedback. And boy, if you adjust to that feedback, look out.
Yeah.
So, it just kind of, yeah, do hard things. We do hard things. It was funny. My oldest wanted to learn Chinese and I went, Whew, I hear that's a hard language to learn. And he's like, Dad, you tell me to do hard things. Okay, you're
Let's
right.
go. Yeah, I think your willingness to communicate about that, right? Like, hey, one, we do hard things, but then talking about when you see it, again, we're going back to acknowledgement. Maybe that's the theme so far of the show is like, I'm acknowledging you and seeing you in the growth zone. Or possibly like, hey, it looks like you're kind of in your comfort zone here. Like, is this an opportunity for you to step into that growth zone? Or, hey, remember that time dad went to the panic zone? Like, let's step it back a little bit. Maybe let's get back in the growth zone. So just the ability to communicate about those things. I think that's something all dads can step into is like, how are you communicating about what you're seeing and observing and feeling and all of these things with your boys? I think you're setting a powerful example there. The last one, and we talked about this early in the show, being someone they can admire and emulate. And I'll always put leadership by example. It's my leadership principle that I live by. You already kind of shared what that looks like. We're jumping around in the show a little bit because you had a great segue, so I jumped there. But I want to go back. One of your sons is special needs, and you wanted to share a story of him trying to climb a tree in your backyard. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So he's high functioning, but there's some things that have been a little bit tougher for him. Growing up, it was, like teaching him to hold a fork and be able to get the food to his mouth. It took a lot of repetition. My wife talks about homeschooling early on and how often she had to put his fingers on the pencil to get him to write, just over and over and over again. And so everything was just a little bit more challenging. Well, one of the things he was good at was climbing. Like we would go to playgrounds and, he'd be on top of the slide, that comes down. And there were some times that I think my wife got some ugly looks from other moms because of that. But she's like, he is succeeding in something, back off,
Yeah.
and so I was actually in the kitchen folding laundry or something. And I hear my middle son going, Dad, look at me, look at me. And I look out the window and he is standing in the tree in this backyard that none of my kids had climbed before. And I'm like, how did you get up there? And so he hops down from the tree, reaches up and grabs a limb, puts his feet onto the trunk, walks him up, steps there, reaches up and grabs a limb, pulls himself up. And I'm like, way to go, dude. And then my older sees it. He's like, I want to do it. I want to do it. And I know what that means. Okay. That means I'm like, I know he's good at climbing, but this might be harder on him. He might not be able to do it. If he can't, it's going to be rough. And I go back out there in the yard to be with him, and he can't get up the tree. And he's putting his feet on the tree trunk, and his feet are sliding off, and he's screaming. I mean, screaming bloody murder about it. And I'm trying not to panic and freak out because of the noise. And one, I'm also kind of like, why in the world did my neighbors not call the cops? I mean, anyway. But so then I'm trying to coach him through it while he's worried about falling when he gets his feet on the trunk and he's kind of hanging back. And I'm like, well, take your shoes off. Take your shoes off. See if that works. So he takes his shoes off, comes over, he's sliding off again. It's not working. And you can just see like he's worried about it. Like he's disappointed. And so I'm like, well, try to put your shoes back on and let's try it again. I'm trying to coach him in different ways what to do. And meanwhile, he's putting his shoes on. His younger brother goes over, grabs it, climbs right up in the tree. Woo, And I'm like, oh, and I just want this for him. And I just know it'll make like the whole evening is going to be hard. He's going to have a difficult time with this if he can't get up this tree. And so he's screaming again and crying. And I'm like, and I'm thinking about how important it is. Like what's the number one factor, whether or not we achieve our goals is whether we believe it can happen. Right. And so I'm going, Eli, listen, buddy, you can do this. Listen, I want you to say it's hard, but I can do it. And he's crying and he's like, it's hard and I can't do it. And I'm like, no, 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 son. And I'm like, listen, I have watched you growing up. I've seen you on the playground. I've seen you climb stuff. Like I've watched you go up slides, ladders, and I'm just naming stuff. I'm like, you can do this. Now I want to hear you say it, son. This is hard, but I can do it. And he's crying in tears like, it's hard and I can do it. And I'm like, that's right. Say it again, and he's like, it's hard, but I can do it. And I'm like, that's right. You can do it. Now pull up, reach up over that limb and stick your foot in that hole. And man, in one smooth motion, this kid pulls up, gets his foot in that hole and reaches up to grab that limb. And he stands up in that tree. And I'm like, yeah, going nuts for him. And I grabbed his forehead and I put his head against mine. And I said, son, I want to hear you say it was hard and I did it. And he said, it was hard and I did it. And it's just crazy that like Something so simple as climbing a tree, and getting your kids to overcome some challenge ends up being like a bedrock of belief in their
Yeah.
life that I go back to time and time again. And, our problems get bigger and more complex, but in the end, we needed somebody to encourage us. We need somebody to show why that we should believe we can do it. And we need some instruction and some feedback. And dang it, we'll get there.
Man, such a powerful story that I think ties into a lot of the stuff that you're doing and a lot of the things that you're sharing. But the ability to be present, be in that growth zone, like with him, right? Hold space, not do it for him. The podcast that just came out today, Russ talked about a lot about like, hey, we want to fix. Like our natural tendency is like, I'm going to help. I'm going to fix this problem. Instead of just like stepping back, providing some coaching like you did, allowing them to believe in themselves and figure it out. And then that gives them that moment of success, of power, of strength. And this goes right back to doing hard things. Like he can now pull on that experience when other things get hard. Like I didn't think I could get up in that tree, but I can do this. That was way harder than this is, which is such a powerful thing that so many young men, young women as well, adults are missing are those beautiful experiences of doing hard things, being in the growth zone, teetering on that panic, but then getting over
That's right.
and succeeding at what they're doing and learning that lesson throughout that. I really appreciate you sharing. This is a great segue into your work you're doing with rite of passage style events. And this is what I alluded to earlier in the show. I think it's so cool. I think it's something that's missing. I talked to Will White, who is in the adventure behavioral health, outdoor behavioral health about like this is missing in society. We need these things. So share with me, Jonathan, about the work you're doing in rite of passage, the experience you had with your son. Like just let's dive in.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, for a while, I had been wanting to do some sort of rite of passage event for my kids when they turn 13, and I gathered a lot of different ideas from a bunch of different authors over the years. And it just felt like, you got limited time with your kids and, more and more research shows they're getting set in their ways earlier. And I'm like, all right, I got 13. It needs to happen. You hear stories of other cultures and how, they have these like rite of passage events or experiences, adventures, different things. And it's like, man, that's meaningful. And it just something to really mark your life and know that it's like this milestone that you've crossed and nobody can challenge it. And so the stakes felt high for me. And sometimes when the stakes feel high, it's hard to figure out. I don't know. It's hard to get over the hump of, am I going to do this good enough? Or, um, will I screw this up? And I eventually was just like, you know what? Something's better than nothing. I got to do something. And so I was a little bit late for my oldest when he turned 13, it's a couple months after, but I worked with a group of guys to put on this event. I kind of knew what I was aiming. I didn't know what I was aiming for with him, but I've been able to better define it since then. And ultimately, I look at that moment as an opportunity to embed a deep identity of manhood in him in a way that serves him for his life. There's like because we act a lot out of our identity. It's like, well, this is what I do. We might not consciously think that, but it's like hardwired in us to make decisions and behave in ways based on who we believe we are. And so I wanted to do something for him in a way that would be instructive and helpful for him for years to come. So what I put together was this late evening event on a Saturday night. I was down in Orlando on a leadership program with my organization, and I actually had one buddy from Chattanooga drive down and showed up just for this event and then drove home the next day.
So cool.
Which is like 8.5, 9 hour drive. But so after my son had gone to bed, we got him up at like 9. He got in bed about 8:30. I got him out of bed at 9. We're like, we got something you're going to do, come get in the car. And so we drive out, and I had the guys already have this event set up. So it was in this really cool, it was technically a backyard, but it was in the woods, and it had like string lights all around this bonfire, really cool area. And there were like tiki torches lining the path leading to the fire pit. And so we're walking on this path, and my son has no idea what's going on. And and somebody was playing some, I think it was Lord of the Rings theme music in the background, so that was nice. And so we get out there and I kind of introduced the event to him. And I really tailored the event along a really powerful framework from Chip and Dan Heath called The Power of Moments. And they've got a great book on that. And I kind of utilized their structure to iron out all that I did for him. And I won't go into all that, but I wanted him really to savor as much of this experience as possible. So I primed him for that. I'm like, listen, here's what's happening tonight. And I want you to notice every little thing. And I had prepped all the guys there on how they were going to play a part and be involved. So, I mean, there was some talk about manhood. There was talk about his childhood. I told that story about him climbing the tree and some other stories about his life. And he ran the farthest he had ever run in his life that morning. He ran 10 miles, which was incredible.
Yeah.
And anyway, so I just was able to talk about his life, and I had a lot of the guys ready. I'm like, listen, I want you to respond naturally to what you hear, but when you hear something that impresses you or like, let him know so that I can point those things out. I'm like, see, son, this isn't just me. I'm wanting to heap on encouragement and belief in this moment. So I'm trying to do what I call fine-tuned encouragement, where it's not the cliche, you can do it type stuff, but it's, here are the reasons why we believe that you are capable in a way that's like, I can't argue with that. That's actually true. And so I structured the whole event for that. And then I did some things to make it where I wanted him to see that, look, childhood ends, but manhood doesn't. Like it's a journey at that point. And for a while, me and your mother are carrying the responsibilities of your life and your growth, but it's time to start handing that off to you little by little. So we did some things to signify that. Like I had him walk the path with a sandbag, like 50-pound sand. No, I was carrying it. And then when we get to the end, I say, all right, this is the end of childhood. This is yours to carry. And I had him say, Dad, that's mine to carry, so he grabs it. I'm trying to and then the manhood part was like walking around the bonfire and everybody's circling and he's walking in front of them. And I had some moments of like teaching him about, hey, you need to stop and rest at times. Rest is important in life. Had some guys talk to him about that. Then I gave him more sandbags and I gave him a second one. I'm like, life is going to add more responsibility to you, son. And it's going to be heavy at first. And then you start carrying it for a while and it gets lighter. So he's carrying that around a little bit. And then I told him, all right. And then life hits you with some crazy stuff. We put out, I think it was 6 sandbags, it was just going to be impossible. Yeah. As a grown man, I could have carried all those. And so he's like reaching down and he was funny. He was great because he did what I wanted him to do, but he's like, a little help. And I had these guys planned that would come out there, lift up some of the bags, put their arms around his shoulders, and walk with him around. I'm like talking about, sometimes you've got to have a swarm of guys that swoop in and help carry the load in life. And I had a friend tell us a story of his life where that it was necessary. It was just a really powerful moment this was over a year and a half ago. And I think I said to him last night, I'm like, son, this is just one of those sandbags. It's time to carry.
Yeah.
He's like, you get me? And he's like, I got you, Dad. So at the end, I wanted to make something special for him that was like visual that he could keep and remind him of this. And he loves animals and knows a ton about them. And I was like, I wonder if there's an animal that like signifies him and his childhood and who he is. And the more I thought about it, the more I was like, no, I don't have it. I need to go mythical. So I was thinking, I was like, he's a phoenix. Not that he literally dies and rises from the, but there's some ways that there's been some significant deaths and hard stuff and some ashes that he's been reborn out of and rise. And so I had a guy make this image of a phoenix with the words rise written across it. And I got it framed and gave it to him. I said, listen, son, this is just who you are. And I'd already told the stories. So it's not like it's backed up, right? I'm not just blowing smoke here. I'm like, dude, you're a phoenix. And so it's hanging up in his bedroom and it's just some awesome imagery. And then I closed it out with something that just gives me chills, man. I love this part. And this part had we were all talking about it for weeks, all the guys, but me and my best friend put him up on our shoulders and I had all the guys jumping around him going, he's one of us. He's one of us. And I mean, he was smiling ear to ear. I mean, you think about that. You're a young teenager and you got these guys saying you're in.
Yeah.
I dare you to try to convince my son he's not a man.
Yeah, right.
I dare you. It's not happening. Like, I'm thankful I was able to put something together specifically for him that really embedded that identity. And there's been a lot of ways I see it I've seen it pay off for him. And so now I'm like in a place where I got a 12-year-old. He turns 13 in November, and I'm ready to plan his. And I've been thinking about it, and it's going to be a little bit different because he's different. And so I'm well, and I can tell you what I'm doing next, but let me pause there and let you respond. I've been talking a lot.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's such a beautiful, deliberate experience. And I think that's what I want the listener to hear is that you were very deliberate in what you wanted to achieve, making it specific for your son, and the thought that you put into it to make sure he was getting out of it what you thought was important and you think he would think was important. The carrying of the load of what manhood looks like and the imagery that you created of you carrying it and then passing to him and then things being overwhelming and then the importance. And I love this part because I think this is where a lot of challenge comes with regards to men and boys is there are going to be times when it is too much, and you have to be okay with asking for help. If more young boys and men and older men, us included, would just be okay with asking for help. Dads, ask for help. It continues to come up in all these episodes. Your ability to demonstrate that, like young boys specifically, I think maybe all young people are visual, and him being able to experience what that felt like. And now, again, this goes back to doing hard things. He's able to pull on that experience, and you've even seen it already a year later. Hey, remember, this is one of those times that we talked about. Oh, that's right, Dad. Like, this is going to be hard, but I'm a man, and I'm walking into manhood, and like, we don't know what age or what exactly that looks like, but like the responsibility and the maturity that comes with taking steps in that direction every single day. I just think it was a beautiful, well thought out experience. And that's why I was so excited to have you on the show to share that story. In your mind, as you're planning your next one, if there's a dad out there listening and they want to do something, maybe they don't have the big group of friends or they don't have the beautiful backyard with tiki torches, like what can that look like? What are the key pieces? Like I want to point out being deliberate, right? The keepsake I think is important. Like those two are so cool. How can a dad create this experience for their son in its like most simple form? What is your guidance?
Yeah, and in its simplest form, I mean, it's an opportunity. Sorry, it's special to me, and I'm thinking about my middle one, and like and this is what I want to help other dads be able to do and tailor it to their kids. And so what I'm going to start doing next month, I actually already got one guy that's going to hop in and we're going to plan our kids together. And I probably could have it like 4 others or so jump in there with me and I can really help coach them on here's how to make it specific to your son. But it's also got to be specific to you as a dad, right? Not everybody it wants to make a speech in front of a bunch of people. I did that for a living, so that came naturally to me. But there's so many different ways that we can do this for our sons. And so ultimately what's most important, I think, is paying good attention to your son and knowing what's important to him and being able to highlight the great character attributes that you're seeing and the progress they've already made and casting some vision for what their future is going to look like and being able to show them like why you believe in them and why others should believe in them. I think is huge. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. I mean, a lot. So another thing I did with my oldest son, when he was really struggling with math was I had a text that I sent probably to 30 other guys. And I said, my son's struggling with math. He needs some encouragement. Will you talk to him about something that you struggled with in life, how you overcame it, and tell him why you think he can do this? And I got some amazing videos from that. And then I took screenshots of all their videos, printed them out, and I had my son write on them the things that they said. And so he would look at those before he started working on math at times, and it helped him turn a corner. So there's just a lot of different ways that we can tailor something specific to our sons that lands deep with them. That's why I call it fine-tuned encouragement, because it's something where they're going to go, that's right. That's true about me. And so I think that's ultimately the most important thing one of the most important things is helping enforce who they are, the really good in them that you're already saying, because it's there. And I love helping others kind of see that in themselves and especially their sons. But then another part I think is like marking the moment as where it's clear, hey, you've entered manhood. Now, you might be a young man, okay, and you're going to make tons of mistakes, and you're not taking all the responsibility for your life at once. It's not like my son moved out of the house and I had to go get a job, right? So it's still this gradual thing, but I don't know, when you don't have some clear welcome into manhood, it can just leave you wondering, like, am I a man? You feel like an imposter. And, for my son, it's like, yes, you're a man. And this is what it feels like to be a man. You have no idea what you're doing. And you stumble along the way. I mean, sure, we might do premarital counseling. We might learn about how to be a parent, but you are never ready. And you just jump in and you stumble and you learn. So, yeah, those two things, like fine tuned encouragement and marking that they are in manhood now in some way or another. And if you can illustrate it with some visuals, go for it. And, some people are creative and they can hear a story like this and start to piece together what they want to do pretty immediately. And others would like more guidance on that. And so, I'm happy to help out in any way that I can with dads looking to do this.
Yeah, for sure. Guys, if that resonates, check out the show notes. We'll make sure to get all Jonathan's links where you can connect on LinkedIn. That's where we originally connected. Or, if you've got other links, I would love to share those because I think it's such a unique thing that you're bringing to dads to help them cultivate this experience, which I know and I can see in your eyes, guys. If you're not watching, you should be watching on YouTube, your eyes and your spirit, that it is such a powerful experience. I know we've got a time crunch, so I want to transition now into our final three questions for the show. Jonathan, you've got one opportunity to talk to every dad in the world. What is your message you're going to send them that they need to hear?
Well, that's a large order right there.
You're up for it.
I love that. You know what? I just think, like, for all of us as dads, as we look back, maybe you had a dad, maybe that was involved, maybe you didn't. But at any rate, the reality is your whole life you've been learning and growing. Whether that was learning to crawl, walk, run, it wouldn't take long for you to stack up the thoughts of the ways that you've learned something and grown and gotten better. And any problem that you're facing as a dad, as a husband, like, yeah, the problem gets more complex and it's more involved and you might not be able to see it. But listen, one of my favorite authors, Henry Cloud, said this. He's like, unless you're Elon Musk trying to go to Mars, somebody's accomplished what you were trying to do.
Yeah.
And so as a dad, like, we've all got these areas that we feel like we come up short in. And honestly, like, probably the best unlock is to find somebody that's like gotten over that hurdle themselves and just shadow them and like just say, man, I admire what you've accomplished in this area. Can you help me? Can you tell me how you got there? And I would like, and I'm like, you can do it. Like, you'll be shocked at how much you can overcome the challenges that you feel as a dad. And it's just like, what else is more worthwhile to invest in to help impact your kids?
Yeah, a very powerful message. We've all got people we could lean on to get help. And I love that part of your story as well, is that when your son was struggling, it wasn't like, oh, I'm just going to be the only one encouraging. No, let me reach out to my community of men, my community of other dads. And that's why it's such a powerful thing to have, that they can also encourage. Let me get him surrounded by other men to help encourage him. Like, that tribe of support is powerful. Jonathan, 10 years from now, you're having coffee with yourself. What are you proud of you for doing or for being as a dad?
Yeah, probably I'll be most proud of continuing to repair with my kids, like, throughout their growth, just because I know it's going to happen. It's going to be needed.
Absolutely.
It just will. And then, yeah, being willing to add my voice to their life, to pay attention to how their life is going, and just encourage the mess out of them in, like, deeply meaningful ways. Like, and it doesn't have to be like a big event like this. It can just be in passing. I like my middle one, when he was going to middle school football practice, he's homeschooled, so he didn't know anybody and he was nervous as all get out and was really down on himself. And I just said, dude, this is going to be a great AJ story. You just wait. And I gave him some reasons why. So I'm like, don't blow smoke. But I think I'll be proud of having more of those moments throughout the stages of their life.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Jonathan, last question. This question is my favorite part of the episode. It's where the previous guest on the show leaves you a question from dad to dad, and then you get the opportunity to leave a question for the next guest. So this comes from Russ Kimura. He's got 3 girls. His episode just came out yesterday. But when your kids are raising their own kids, what part of your example do you hope they repeat? And this seems like an easy question for you, maybe connected to the previous one. But what is your example you hope they repeat with their kids?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is both those things that I just mentioned. I'm like, I hope they get really good at repairing with their kids, their families, and that they provide a lot of encouragement. Yeah, boy, wouldn't that be neat to have that legacy that you get to pass on?
Yeah. Yeah, imagine your sons are like, hey, my dad taught me this behavior to maintain a beautiful relationship. Obviously, you can see that me and my dad, your granddad, are still close. He taught me this, and now I'm teaching it to you. I think you're on the right path. You're doing it. You're setting the example not only for your boys, but for other dads out there. Jonathan, I truly appreciate your time, the deliberate nature of how you're raising your boys and you're creating these unique experiences, and your willingness to share that with other dads, because I think the impact of these rite of passage style events, whatever that may look like, from complex to simple, you being able to help facilitate that for other dads is powerful. So thank you for coming on the show. Truly an honor
Thanks for
to
having me.
share your story, man.
Thanks a lot,
Yeah.
Nick.
All right, guys, if you like the show, be sure to check out the show notes, connect with Jonathan, lean in to these events. If you want to cultivate something like this for your sons or daughters, definitely reach out. And if you like the episode, give us a 5-star review, like, follow, subscribe, all that jazz, wherever you're consuming the show. We'll see you next time.